Now, what
They do.
about Andrew Yang, you guys? Now, I've been calling Yang's
Oh, it's so sad.
policies trash for the last 4 years, I think. Um,
Mhm.
Increased welfare, increased taxes. I don't know how that's supposed to be a winning combination. According to Elad Eliyahu, shout out to Barely Informed with Elad, he seems to think the results just went down racial division lines in New York City. I'm not as familiar in this New York City as you might be, Eric. I can bring up the map, but he seems to think that black people voted for the one guy, socialists voted for the girl, Asians voted for Yang. Do you know much about this? Should I just bring up this map? What do you think, Eric?
Well, I don't know too much about it, but I will say, in my experience, New Yorkers are stupid. I mean,
Yeah, they voted in AOC.
yeah, they voted in AOC.
There's something about him. De
Yeah,
Blasio.
so,
De Blasio.
exactly.
Cuomo. Like, wow, you guys.
And those are the big names, right? We also have some like smaller time socialist city council members, all sorts of awful people because New Yorkers are brainwashed. I mean,
there's even like fake Republicans in there, right? There's fake Republicans who are pretty much Democrats but call themselves Republicans.
Well, absolutely, because they will not entertain the idea of a Republican. I mean, they won't do it. So it's a complete mess. Now this map, is this? Oh yeah, this is the one that.
So here's what he says. Yeah. Adams gets most black and brown outer borough neighborhoods. Now Adams is the pro-cop, pro-gun guy, I believe.
He is not pro-cop, and he is not.
Am I thinking of somebody else?
No, he used to be a cop. He used to be a cop.
Well, okay. Here, I have a personal bone to pick with Eric Adams because he last year in what some people will never quite understand, we dealt with fireworks terrorism in New York. I mean, these things were going off all hours of the night. Before the sun even went down, all the way until 6 or 7 a.m., people had what I can assume is millions of dollars worth of fireworks across all 5 boroughs. And Eric Adams was very in the defund the police camp at that time. Of course, things do change, and I'm not going to say that he doesn't have a right to change his mind, but he specifically went out and said, when your neighbors are lighting off fireworks, again, I don't think anybody will ever understand how bad this situation actually was, but he went out and said, well, if your neighbors are lighting off fireworks, you don't need to call the cops. Don't call the police. They're not going to help the situation. You should go talk to your neighbors.
And I'm sure you know about this since you've been staying at City Hall. You live in Brooklyn overall, but there's this rise in illegal fireworks happening all across New York City, but really happening in Brooklyn. 1,737 calls for fireworks right now. What are your thoughts overall on this? And in fact, you're saying that people should not call 311 or 911 for anybody to come and take action here. So what are you saying they should do?
No, 311 they should call. We should use the 311 system for non-criminal actions. And I believe this is a very important part, Dan. This is what we call for by using 311 correctly. I think that we need to create community-based response teams. We don't want police responding to incidents that are non-criminal in nature, violent crimes in particular.
Right, but Borough President, I'm going to cut you off for a second because you're looking at the video right now on the screen, right? Those fireworks are being shot off around people's homes. So how do you get that? How do you react to that quickly to make sure the people around those fireworks and in those houses and apartment buildings are safe? Because we saw in Yonkers, people lost their homes because of fires that were happening because of these fireworks.
We need to be proactive, Dan. Dan, you watch what happened in this city for the last 2 weeks, marching in the street. People stated they don't want heavy-handed policing. So I say to the city, if that's what you're saying, then now it's time for adults once again to get out of their homes and now play the role of parents and adults. Either we can't send out mixed messages. If it's wrong for police to encounter people for doing nuisance types crime, it is now to build out an infrastructure in our communities where the adults must now retake control of their communities. People may not like that Eric Adams is saying this, but the reality is this is what we talk about when we say redefining what policing is alike in our city. And that's what I'm calling for, to have organizations like Cure Violence to be part of the response team. And let's do it in the daytime before evening time.
And famously, one woman was shot 8 times and killed because she approached her neighbors that were lighting off fireworks in the middle of her night in the middle of the night when her dog couldn't sleep.
So I remember that.
Yeah. So the point is, he is more tough on crime now because crime has actually gotten worse since last summer. But that is not real. They go with whichever way the wind blows. At that point in time last summer, right after George Floyd, he was just as much as defund the police as the rest of these crazy idiots.
Mm-hmm. So here's what else he said. Wiley does well in the gentrifying areas of Brooklyn and Queens. So this is that black girl who was very pro defund police, even though at the last minute she said that she wasn't.
Staying with policing, you've proposed defunding the NYPD by $1 billion, but I want to show you some recent surveying we did of New Yorkers. It shows that 70% of people would like to see the budget increased or kept the same. Only 30% want to see it decreased. You can see it on our graphic right there. Make the argument to that 70% as to why you are right.
Well, first I want to correct you just on one thing, Henry, which is I have never called for defunding the New York City Police Department.
I think people are rightly saying you have to cut the police budget.
I'm going to take $1 billion from the New York City Police Department,
cut $1 billion from the NYPD budget, which is bloated.
So now, it sounds like you stand with defunding the police.
I stand very much with, we have a bloated police department.
Cutting $1 billion apparently isn't defunding them. Catherine Garcia, liberals in Manhattan who read the New York Times, and Yang gets Asians and Jews in Brooklyn and Flushing. It's weird how I've never been to New York and I recognize all the names of everything of Flushing and
too much TV.
Yeah, really. The Simpsons episode where they go to
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, of course. So I didn't expect anyone to vote for Yang. He's so vanilla. I don't understand. Alex Jones thinks he's a plant. I don't know where the idea gets from. I guess I just wanted to rip on Andrew Yang a little bit before we move on.
Yang. It's not even entirely his fault, right? Some of it has to do with his team. Did you know that Dave Chappelle offered to do free publicity for him to do, like a live show promoting him? Yeah, he did. He offered the team that. He offered Andrew Yang that, and the team decided they were going to turn him down because he's too controversial. Too controversial. Keep in mind, this is the Andrew Yang that, for when he was running for president, everybody loved him. Right? You had the Yang Gang people. You had all these very fringe people who were supporting him because, he would just say it like it is. And that was, I guess, a different team. But with his new team, they were like, oh, you got to steer away from controversy. You got to be more mainstream milquetoast, right? You got to be a Democrat. So he ran on this terrible platform, not really having a message, nothing clear. And, he lost. I mean, in addition to the fact that, his opponents were better at messaging, obviously. I think Adams, in particular, was good at reaching out to the black community, which is seeing sky-high rates of violent crime, and he recognizes that. He hears the complaints, and they're saying, refund the police. So that's where he's going, and maybe he'll do something good if he wins, right? But with Yang, on the other hand, it's like he didn't even know what he was saying, right? He had no message at all.
That's a full-service presidential candidate. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, look at this. We know you're ready to opposite style. The office opening is complete.
Who's next? Get in here.